Alright, hello everybody, Friendly Red here, and welcome to News Peruse. Today, we'll be taking a look at some of the games that were announced at the III Initiative. In case you don't know, the III Initiative is a new showcase dedicated to showing off the latest and greatest games and projects from independent developers. Notice that I did say we'll be looking at some games, and not all of them. I mainly want to focus on the games that either caught my attention personally, or the ones that were made out as more of the bigger deals. That's not to discredit any of the other projects I won't mention here, of course. I watched the entire show, and I can tell you that it was nothing but very high quality looking titles throughout, but some of them were in genres or series I don't know a whole lot about, or really just don't have too much interest in myself. I will leave a link to the showcase if you'd like to view it for yourself, and I'd recommend it. It was a very well paced and produced show, and I hope we'll see more of it in the future. With that being said, let's get into the games. Starting off with a bang, we had the announcement of Slay the Spire 2. As the name would suggest, this is a follow-up to the uber-popular roguelike deck builder. And while we did not see any direct gameplay, I think we can know what to expect from it. I did play the original game, however, it never really hooked me like it did many others. Regardless, it was still a great game, and I will for sure be checking out the sequel once it arrives sometime in 2025. Right after that, we had a trailer for the new free update to Risk of Rain 2, which looks pretty good. I was personally hoping we would see more info regarding the game's upcoming second DLC/expansion, Seekers of the Storm, but I suppose we'll have to wait a little bit longer before we learn about it in detail. I suppose this update will help tide us over until then. Thirdly, we had the announcement of a new game titled Kill Knight. This looks to be a new player in the genre I like to call Survivor-likes, a game similar in gameplay to the popular title Vampire Survivors, more on that later, where it's just you mowing down horde after horde of enemies. I've enjoyed my fair share of these kinds of games, and this one does seem to have a strong first impression, I'd say. I like that it has a combo of both melee and gunplay for combat, and the overall look and aesthetics are quite unique too, using 3D with some stylish CRT-like filters and effects, at least in the trailer. That reminds me of the recently released Buckshot Roulette, actually. This one is due out sometime this year, and I'll be sure checking it out once I can. Okay, after back-to-back two-back announcements, we're going to skip ahead a bit in the show to talk about the next game that caught my eye, that being Gestalt. Steam and Cinder. Nothing too groundbreaking here really, but it does look like a very polished and fun 2D action game slash Metroidvania with some cool mixings of steampunk and fantasy settings and characters. Also really like the character portraits when they appear, being so like big and detailed, yet pixel art is really cool. This one's out on May 21st of this year, so not too much longer before we can check it out. Alright, that whole more on Vampire Survivors later thing from before, yeah, that time is now. So, not only is Vampire Survivors coming to PlayStation systems, but it is also getting a brand new crossover DLC, this time with Contra. I'm not too big into Contra itself, but the Vampire Survivor DLCs have always been an amazing quality and bang for your buck kind of deal, and I'm sure this one will continue that trend. PlayStation versions of Vampire Survivors are due out this summer, while the Contra DLC, Operation Guns, is out on May 9th. Moving forward a bit again in the show, we got a trailer for the Act 2 update for Death Must Die. And this is another solid Survivor-like, one that takes a lot of visual and gameplay cues from Hades. I'd presume this update will add some new maps, characters, abilities, enemies, the works. But we don't have to wait too long to find out for sure though, as it is out on April 20th. Now, this next game was one of my personal highlights from the show, and it's What the Car. This looks to be an insanely silly physics-based platformer puzzle game where you get to control a car that can morph and change into all kinds of different and weird forms. It gave off a lot of Katamari, Damacy, and Untitled Goose Game vibes, and I love it for that alone personally. Very interested in playing the full game once it releases this September, and there's even a demo out now to try, which I may look into myself. And speaking of personal highlights from the show, though on something a bit more serious, we have RKGK, or Rakugaki. Talk about style. This trailer instantly caught my eye with its cyberpunk-esque look, bright and vibrant colors, holographic graffiti. We didn't see any live gameplay at this reveal, as it was only a cinematic, sadly. Luckily, the website and Steam page gives us a bit more details as to what we can expect from the game itself. It's going to be a single-player 3D platformer that looks to combine a bunch of different movement, including jumps, dashes, glides, grind rails. You know, considering it has grind rails and graffiti, I wonder if the Jet Set Radio games had any inspiration on this title. Anyways, yes, that's Rakugaki, and it's out sometime this summer. I'm absolutely giving this one a go. And the personal highlights won't stop. Shortly after the Rakugaki reveal, we got a new trailer for Hyperlight Breaker, one of my more anticipated releases of the year. This was supposed to release into early access last fall, but got delayed into this year. While we still don't have a concrete date for it, it will be hitting early access this summer. While it hasn't been said to be a direct sequel or anything, this game is following up 2016's Hyperlight Drifter, which was easily one of my favorite games back then. Hyperlight Drifter is a top-down 2D action game with tons of style, killer music, and a mysterious yet intriguing world and story. Breaker is still looking to be all of that, but this time, in a whole new dimension. Similar to how Risk of Rain 2 took its original game's concept and translated it to 3D, I feel Hyper Light Breaker seems to be doing the same to Drifter, and it continues to look really good. I eagerly await its early access launch so I can try it myself. Nearing the end of the showcase, there are 2 more games to touch on. Mouse is up next, which continues to look insanely incredible based on its visuals alone. It's seriously hard to put into words just how much I love how this game looks. There are of course some comparisons that could be made to Cuphead, though I honestly think Mouse is actually more impressive considering it's pulling off this retro 1930s cartoon look in first person rather than in a 2D side-scroller. Sadly, there wasn't a ton to this showing here, as it was a pretty short demo of some gameplay, but I was sold on this game the moment I saw it first time earlier this year. Mouse is slated to arrive sometime in 2025. And last, but certainly not least, we ended this first ever AAA initiative with a brand new game from the same devs that brought us Dead Cells, the Rogue Prince of Persia. This was actually reported on earlier this month, but we got an official showing of the game here, and like a lot of the other games discussed so far, yeah, this looks amazing. I was pretty late to the Dead Cells party, as I only really got into it around this time last year when the Castlevania DLC released for it. Regardless of being tardy to that party, I greatly enjoyed what I played of Dead Cells, and I can totally see why those devs are able to tackle something like Prince of Persia next. They've got 2D action and platforming down to near perfection, I think, and I'm sure their talents will transfer over to this game beautifully. Between this and the excellent Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, which released earlier back in January, I'm also really happy to see Ubisoft bring back the series after so long, and with such high quality titles no less. The Rogue Prince of Persia will be hitting early access on May 14th, and you already know I'm going to be playing it. Well, that was quite a lot, right? And heck, like I said at the beginning, we didn't even go over every game from the show. Needless to say, I think this first ever AAA initiative was a resounding success, and I'm grateful to any and all the teams and devs that put their support behind it, for the producers and backers who made it all possible. With the AAA gaming space being as shaky as ever, with ballooning game budgets and prices, and the unfortunate loss of so many jobs across the industry, I think it's great that smaller titles like these shown here get the limelight and attention they deserve. Not every game needs to be these huge double or triple digit playtime open world juggernauts. Not every game needs to be a live service, battle pass ridden, always online fiasco. At the end of the day, games are meant to be fun, and I personally feel that smaller teams and games like these shown here are the ones that really continue to keep that mentality at the forefront. And stupid Nintendo games. I do quite like me a stupid Nintendo game every now and then. But I think that's going to do it for this news peruse. As always, I thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.